Peace, family. This is Phoenix Black with Heal Black People, the live stream. And tonight we are going to discuss blood sugar, diabetes, which is, I don't think there's, anyone out there that's listening that, doesn't have a family member or someone close to them that is struggling with this disease. So that's what we really wanted to address tonight. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Testing 1 2 3. Okay, how come I can't hear myself? Testing 1 2 3. 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 Okay, this is Phoenix Black with Heal Black People, the live stream. And tonight we are going to discuss diabetes, blood sugar, and so forth, all related issues, and also insulin resistance. Tonight's episode, this is episode 5. The road to diabetes is paved with good intentions. So that is going to be the discussion tonight. I'm also posting my disclaimer so that you all are aware that we actually have a disclaimer. I hadn't been doing that in the past. I usually put it in the description of the video, but I'm going to start including it in the video from this point forward because that's something that's definitely needed. Just as a reminder to you all that are watching that I am not a medical professional. This live stream is just purely information. Informational, I should say. So if you just take it for what it's worth to you, but I would definitely, I have to say this legally, I would definitely consult with a physician, but there's the legalese right there for you to read or come back to at some point later on in the live stream or the playback. Okay. And again, I am always one to encourage physical activity, even if you're, at the lower end of the physical activity spectrum, where you're not as, you're more sedentary, not as active as you would like to be. Get out there or go to the gym, whatever you need to do to get physical anyways. And, I myself, I started out being much heavier than I am now. But just remember, no matter how slow you go, you're still lapping everyone on the couch. Don't compare yourself to others. Just stay encouraged. Have your positive affirmations that you do from day to day to just get you through it and get you to where you're trying to go. Just a little reminder there. Sometimes we get caught up in the material things like nails and hair bundles and just other physical, whatever. Physical, material things, whatever it may be for you. Just remember that health is wealth. You're investing yourself because your health is your most valuable asset. Without good health, you can't take care of yourself or others to your fullest potential because you're not in your best health. So definitely take care of yourself. And just showing my social media information here as well, where I can be reached. On YouTube, you'll have to actually type in Heal Black People because I don't have a dedicated URL for YouTube yet. If you do watch this on YouTube, by all means, please subscribe. Okay. Yeah, my hair's a little wild tonight, huh? It looks wild on camera. And it's like, okay. Anyways, but yes, we are going to be discussing insulin resistance. I cannot talk tonight. Insulin resistance, pre-diabetes. Basically, they're kind of one and the same somewhat, and diabetes and blood sugar and what impacts it and so forth. So that's what we are discussing here tonight. And let's get off into this because there's a lot I want to discuss. And I would definitely advise you to take notes if you can. By all means, take notes on what we're discussing tonight because we're going to be going over a lot of material. So take your notes. Whenever the playback is available, by all means, watch it again, take notes, rewind back, take more notes. This is definitely going to be beneficial to you and those that you care about because especially in the Black community, diabetes really hits us hard. I think all of us know someone either in our family that is close to us that has diabetes or maybe, has been diagnosed as being pre-diabetic. So it's definitely a subject that hits close to home for all of us. I know in my family, I have a lot of people in my family that are also diabetic. It runs in my family. And the reason why I'm become, I guess, more or less an advocate and passionate about health, not only health, but especially diabetes, is because it affects my own family. And, when it comes to conditions like this, they just shorten your life. You're not enjoying the full quality of your life when you have something like this. Now you can treat it and even reverse it. And we're going to get into some of the things you can do to treat it or, reverse the path you may be on to having diabetes in this live stream tonight. And first I want to drop some statistics on you about diabetes so that you are aware of how prevalent it actually is. Most of us already know this stuff. I mean, we see it day to day, how prevalent diabetes is in our own communities and just around us. But let's go over to statistics. Okay. And here, a lot of these images I get online just to kind of go along with what I'm discussing as visual aid so that you can actually see this as you're hearing this. Diabetes by numbers, and it says here 30 million plus people in the U.S. have diabetes. And that's literally 10% of the population. 7.2 million who have it aren't even aware of it. And that goes into another thing I'm going to discuss tonight. Being that diabetes runs so heavily in my family, and as it does for some of you as well, if it runs in your family or you have family members that do have diabetes, I would highly suggest that you get a glucometer, even if you've never been, even if you go to the doctor regularly and the doctor's never told you that you have diabetes, get a glucometer anyways, just so that you know where you're at, so that what foods may be raising your blood sugar and how often and what times a day and so forth, just so you're mindful and aware of where you're at. Because I find that whenever you know what's going on with your body, that you're more mindful and are more likely to take care of it. Whereas if if you're not taking care of your body, you have no idea what your blood sugar is day in and day out after you're eating meals or in the morning before you eat anything. You're just gonna go through. You're not gonna eat as carefully or as mindfully as I should say as you would as if you did have a glucometer. So definitely, stay on top of that. And like I said, again, if you have, diabetes runs in your family, I would implore you to get a glucometer, especially if you're like over the age of 30. Okay, and there's some more statistics here. And it says here, 34 million estimated adults were pre-diabetic in 2015. That's quite a bit. 132,000 children and adolescents younger than 18 have diabetes in the U.S. And in this, when we talk about diabetes tonight, we're mainly talking about type 2 diabetes. Type 1 diabetes is a form of autoimmune diabetes that you may be born with or develop during your childhood. It has nothing to do with eating habits. It's just something that's just like I said, again, it's autoimmune disease. In some cases, it is hereditary. It does run in families as well, but it's not from how you eat necessarily. Okay, and diabetes is also the 7th leading cause of death in the U.S. Caused at least or in part more than 250 deaths in 2000. I cannot read tonight. In 2015 in the U.S. That's a lot. That's really a lot. Those are those statistics there. Excuse me. And it costs $245 billion a year to treat diabetes. Wow, that's a lot. But I can believe that too, because I know of people that have to actually inject insulin every day, and they talk about how expensive insulin is, and it's for something that's preventable, that's a lot of money. It's a lot of money. And it says I guess for every individual that does have diabetes that's been diagnosed, it costs them $13,700 a year. So if you're taking diabetic medications like say metformin, you're also taking insulin, like I believe Lantus is one. There's other prescription medications out there as well. You're spending a lot of money. And, to me personally, and this is not coming from a place of judgment at all, because I myself, I'm on the road to diabetes, which I've taken a lot of corrective action in my lifestyle and my eating habits to change that. So just know that I'm not coming from a judgmental place. It's just kind of hoping, just spreading awareness and hoping that if you haven't really thought about it before, that you'll think about it today, as far as, being more mindful about taking better care of your body, making sure that you're, doing the most that you can to prevent yourself from ever having diabetes. Because the thing is with diabetes, it's not something where you wake up one day and you have diabetes. It's a process that happens, some people, depending on your genetics and other various factors, some people are actually diagnosed sooner than others. But diabetes is a process. It's from years and years of just not making the greatest eating choices. It can also not managing your stress the best. Sleep also impacts blood sugar. So when I say diabetes, just know that I'm not only talking about diabetes in of itself. That's like the end of the road. But, there's other things that also lead to diabetes as well that we're going to get into. But $13,700 a year, that's a lot. That is a lot. Seeing that doesn't, makes me want to make sure that I'm doing everything that I possibly can. Okay, and as I discussed, the path from insulin resistance to prediabetes to type 2 diabetes. Again, type 2 diabetes, which is preventable and reversible, it is not a process that happens overnight. If you look at the fine print at the bottom of this graphic, it says most people with prediabetes develop type 2 diabetes within 10 years, unless they lose 5 to 10% of their body weight, making changes in their diet and level of physical activity. And this is from, I can't really see the name of the website, but But it just shows here like the path, like the progression of diabetes. And this is like over years. It doesn't happen like within days or months, but this happens over like maybe 5 to 10, maybe even 20 years of just, again, poor, maybe poor eating habits, poor stress management, those type of things. And first you start out with insulin resistance, which I'm pretty sure that I'm somewhere between number 1 and 2, because when I look at, and we're going to go over this tonight too, when I look at insulin resistance and the symptoms of it, I've had a lot of those symptoms in the past. And when I did finally get a glucometer, it confirmed my suspicions. I probably am insulin sensitive. Insulin resistance. So, it's just my body doesn't, like whenever I have a blood sugar spike, my insulin's getting to a place where it doesn't respond as promptly or the way it should. So, but I have, definitely taken steps to reverse that. Through my diet, through physical activity, just making serious lifestyle changes. And that's one thing I hate about the word diet, because diet sounds so temporary. Whenever you're, if you are at high risk for having diabetes or insulin resistance, any of this stuff, or high blood sugar, any of the stuff we're talking about tonight, you just really need to be mindful. And do, again, I can't, I know I sound like a broken record by saying this, to do your due diligence to keep yourself from having, having to deal with this at some point in your life. But it all starts with insulin resistance first. And the insulin resistance, or some people call it prediabetes, it gets progressively worse. And eventually you will develop, the actual diabetes. And when it comes to diabetes, your blood sugar has to hit a certain peak, and we'll go over that in a second. But once your blood glucose reaches a certain number, you are officially diabetic. So we're going to discuss that in a future slide here. And the final stage, as you can see here, at number 5, is actual diabetes. So let's go to the next one here. And this is going to discuss the insulin resistance, the symptoms of insulin resistance, actually. And you start having weight gain, which increases your appetite, your blood sugar increases. It just, it's a vicious cycle, basically. Your muscle cells don't respond well to insulin. Blood sugar remains high, more insulin produced. It's just an endless cycle. And also what you don't want, and what actually leads to the weight gain to begin with, is that when you consume too much sugar, and that doesn't mean you're eating necessarily cookies, cakes, and ice cream. You could be eating bread, because any type of simple carb like bread, I'm trying to think of other things that aren't sweet, pretzels even, anything that's like a simple carb is going to be eventually converted to sugar within your body. And if you get too much of that, that is going to be converted to fat. A lot of people don't understand that on a biological level, but yeah, when you get too many carbs, it converts to sugar, which is going to convert to fat. And we're going to go into more detail about the symptoms here. Okay, and this is another image here saying, is this you? And this is simply discussing the symptoms of insulin resistance, how it all starts out. And, you have the fatigue, the constant hunger, inability to lose weight, which I've definitely experienced that. Cravings for sugar, fatigue after meals, headaches and pains. Aches and pains, migraine aches and pains. Upper abdominal obesity, which is basically just belly fat, increased fat storage, low thyroid. In other words, it makes you go into hypothyroidism, estrogen dominance. So if if your periods are all crazy and just not necessarily irregular, but maybe your periods are heavier, or you're more moody or depressed than usual when it gets closer to your time of the month, or during your time of the month if you're a woman. It also can lead to polycystic ovary syndrome as well, which some of the symptoms of that is acne, facial hair, infertility. Because the more sugar that you consume, sugar also feeds estrogen. So the more sugar you're consuming, the more estrogen you're going to have in your body. And if you have too much estrogen in your body, that's what's called estrogen dominance, basically. So you definitely want to be mindful of that. Sugar impacts your body in so many ways. So. Okay, And this, we're going to go into a blood sugar chart. Okay. And this goes over like, and this is for like normal, for a normal person that does not have diabetes versus a person that has been diagnosed with diabetes or that has it. So your fasting blood sugar, which is what your blood sugar or your blood glucose is when you first wake up in the morning, it should be within the 70 to 99 range. However, I have really been listening to a lot of people that are well versed and knowledgeable about diabetes, especially from a holistic health perspective. And from what I've been, reading and listening to, the general consensus in that community is that the ideal fasting blood glucose should be 84. So, even though this says 70 to 99 for the glucose or blood sugar, really I would say in between that would be like 84, 85 is like just ideal. That's what I'm shooting for myself here lately. I've been like getting within, I've had 84 before on when I, do my blood, test my blood sugar. Usually I hit between 84 to 106. That's been my variable. And 106 is not that great either, but we're going to get into that later. But yeah, I've really been, just trying to do my best to monitor that better and stay within a healthy range, because if you really don't want it to get above, you don't want to get your blood sugar to get above 100. And, even here it does say, 70 to 99 for a normal person. And below that is like, if you already have diabetes, what it should be. But I would say too, even if you already have diabetes, you still need to shoot for, the optimal range or as close to as you can get and still be functional. Because because my deceased, and I'll share this, my deceased ex-husband, he had severe diabetes. However, the way his diabetes was with him is that he was more functional when his blood sugar was a little bit higher than when it was, than when it was low from taking his meds. But at the same time, I do know in his situation, he wasn't getting a decent amount of sleep, and he had like a third, that graveyard shift job. They don't call it, hint, graveyard shift. He had a graveyard shift job. He wasn't eating right. So, and that's another thing too. Whenever you have, whenever you're struggling with insulin resistance, pre-diabetes, diabetes, it's really important that you get a good night's sleep, 8 hours, 7 to 8 hours at least. I know I'm not the greatest at that either. And like I said, I do at least have insulin resistance. However, you really should be trying to work on getting as much sleep as you can at night. I'll say that. And on top of that, really managing your stress, because there are other things that can impact your blood sugar other than just simply what you're consuming. And a lot of people don't know that either. And I think that's been a factor for me as well, because I know myself, even though I strive to get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, I'm not successful at that every night. So some nights I do get like just 6 hours. And here lately I'm just getting over a cold. And like at nighttime, I was like coughing like crazy because I was, it would hit me at night because my throat was all crazy and everything. So I wasn't getting the best night's sleep. But just know when that happens, when you test your blood sugar in the morning after, not getting much sleep at night, it is probably going to be elevated because you didn't get a full night's sleep, basically. Your blood sugar 2 hours after a meal should be normal for a person, less than 140. Less than 140 for a person without diabetes. So that, if you're tested with a glucometer, it should be less than 140. If you have diabetes, it should be less than 180. And that, but even with that, I would say, to me, I wouldn't even want to get it. If after I eat a meal, I don't even want it to be close to 130, let alone 140. If I had a blood sugar of 140 after eating a meal, that would probably freak me out. And see that, and this goes to another thing too. Whenever you notice that your numbers are off, that means you're also you're possibly, especially after you eat a meal, and if it gets too far out of range from this blood sugar chart here, you may not be managing your carb intake well. And that's one thing that whenever you're really watching your blood sugar, you really have to manage carb intake. So that's just another thing I really want to drive home. And here is another blood. It's not really a chart, but it just kind of gives you. It's more in depth as far as the ranges and what's ideal as far as blood sugar is concerned. And this one actually says 68 between 68 and 100 is superb blood glucose levels. 68 would be scary because I would think 68 is a little scary. I wouldn't want to be that low either. Like I said, to me, 84, 85 in the 80s is a pretty decent range. 68 would scare me because you don't want to get your blood sugar too low either, because that can be dangerous. Okay, and if it gets along, and I mentioned having blood sugar as high as 106 before, that's a little elevated. That means I need to monitor and watch it closely, which I have been, because again, I do not want to be diabetic. If it goes above that, it just has, complications, shorter lifespan, and it gets higher and higher, deathly. And for those of you that are already diabetic that are listening tonight, I would say too, if your blood pressure, and this is just from knowing people that have had diabetes, and I've had, I've had loved ones, my ex-husband, may you rest in peace. I recall when he had hit one, because another thing is too, whenever you have diabetes and you have it like a really severe diabetes, it can also cause you to have seizures. In his case, I recall him once going to the ER after having a seizure of having a blood sugar as high as 300. And that's not, you don't ever want to get into the 200s or 300 if you can by all means help it, especially if you're already, if you get into 200s at all, you're diabetic. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. You are diabetic, basically. But, you just really I implore those of you that have it, just be mindful of how you're eating. And really, if you're already diabetic, you really shouldn't be eating sweets. I know a lot of conventional doctors conventional medicine doctors will say, well, that's what your medication is for. You can just eat what you want, basically, and your medication will be the buffer that'll keep your blood sugar from getting out of whack. And to me, that's not good medical advice, because I feel that even conventional medical doctors, a holistic doctor is going to tell you this anyways, or a functional medicine doctor, they know. But a lot of times, and I've even seen this myself just reading up on diabetes and so forth, a conventional medicine doctor will tell you, just let your medicine take care of it. The only reason why they're telling you that is because they want you to, keep you as a patient for life. And they get more money and more kickbacks from the drug companies for telling you that, when they should really be telling you, you need to make some serious lifestyle changes so that you can either, prevent yourself from getting diabetes or reverse it, because diabetes is also reversible. It's not easy to reverse it, but I've watched too many and listened to too many podcasts, books, and so forth. People have actually reversed their diabetes through diet and just changing, just some other modification within their lifestyle. And here, I found this online. I thought this was highly informative. Excuse me. But I thought this was highly informative. This discusses 42 factors that affect blood glucose, or blood sugar. And if, as we know, food does impact it. And here it's talking about carbohydrate quantity, the carbohydrate type, because again, with carbohydrates, there's simple carbs and then there's complex carbs. Simple carbs are like your breads, your cakes, your pastas, your sweets, and sugary drinks, and so forth. Your complex carbs are your vegetables, fruits, that type of thing, healthier stuff. But you can still get too much of that too. So, too much of the fruit, I should say. But we're going to get into that in shortly here, because I want to definitely touch on that. Fat can actually either lower your blood sugar or raise it. It depends on what you're eating. It really depends on what you're eating. Same with protein. It just depends on, because the thing with protein, like, you could be eating meat, but if you're eating, like, say you're eating some brisket and it has like a really sugary barbecue sauce, because a lot of times we don't think about condiments. That barbecue sauce that's loaded with sugar can raise your blood sugar. So you'll be wondering, hey, I just had a piece of, I had a barbecue wing. Why am I, or brisket or rib or whatever. Why is my blood sugar high now? Well, that sugary barbecue sauce that was on it probably kicked it up. And really and truly, the thing is too, anything that you eat will raise it. It's just that carbs raise it more than anything. So whenever you're eating a fat or a protein with carbs or sugar or a bread or whatever the case may be, it does increase it. Caffeine can also, it's saying here that it's either neutral or can raise your blood sugar. Alcohol is weird because from what I was reading about alcohol it will either, initially it will lower your blood sugar to the point where you're like hypoglycemic, but then it can also raise it because the thing is, if you're like having a mixed drink, like for me, I like, what kind of drink? I like tequila, like a, mixed drink tequila, or strawberry daiquiris, pina coladas, things like that. That can still raise your blood sugar because, oftentimes those have like heavy syrups and juices and whatnot in them that, make them sweet. And of course it's going to jack up that blood sugar. Meal timing, one thing I've noticed about that with myself since I've been monitoring my own blood sugar is that when I eat after a certain time, I'm probably going to have a higher blood sugar the next morning. Like I find that if I eat, like say if I eat vegetables, especially if I eat vegetables as my evening, like for dinner, my last meal in the evening or whatever, my blood sugar isn't as high as if I eat maybe like a piece of meat, some beans or whatever. So what I've learned from that, and this is useful in your weight loss journey as well, what I've learned from that as far as, how my body works is when I reduce my calorie consumption later in the evening, is that that greatly improves my blood sugar as far as like, I don't have to worry about having like a high fasting blood sugar in the morning because that night before, I ate something probably a little too late. So that's something else to think about too. But yeah, I know it's with myself. And because they used to say that if it used to be that it was a myth that like you lose more weight or it's easier for you to lose weight if you cut off eating after a certain time. Well, I'm here to tell you, if you struggle with your weight, if you're overweight or obese, you best cut off eating after cut off eating, I would say at 7, really no later than 7:30. 8's pushing it. But yeah, I would say, have a definite curfew when it comes to what you're eating, what times you eat, have a curfew with that so that your body has time to, bring your blood sugar down and everything it needs to do and recover and just do all the things that it needs to do. Because I notice when I push it towards 7:30 or if I eat carbs, some kind of carb not late in the evening, but you know what I mean, like at 7:30ish, then I'm more than likely I'm going to have a higher blood sugar the next day. You don't really want that. Dehydration, water helps just regulate your body on so many levels. So if you're not getting enough water, that will raise your blood sugar as well. Insufficient sleep, that's a big one because your body's recovering at night. And again, as I've said before, whenever you don't get 7 to 8 hours of sleep, that does raise your blood sugar. It also throws your body into insulin resistance for the next day. And this, I should have actually provided the source for that too, but I can verify it. I might include that in the notes at the bottom. But yeah, insufficient sleep also raises your blood sugar. Stress or lack thereof, stress management, that can raise your blood sugar. Hypoglycemia, during sleep blood sugars. There's what they call, look into this because I always want to encourage you all to do your own research. There's a phenomenon called here it is right here, the dawn phenomenon. And that's where your blood sugar will raise in the middle of the night, like at 3 a.m. or something. I haven't really done enough research on that, but it does. Some people do have that where their blood sugar will raise like at 3 a.m. and then sometimes it'll cause them to wake up. But yeah, I need to do more research on that myself. But yeah, we all need to do more research on that. But that's another thing that can impact that as well. Okay, let me scroll up a little bit here. Other things. Okay. Also, some of the medications that we're taking, that can impact your blood sugar. And of course, the arrows going up means, it increases your blood sugar. If the green arrows going down, means a decrease in blood sugar. I never heard about B3 increasing your blood sugar, though. That one I hadn't, or blood glucose. I never heard about that one. That one I'm going to have to research more. But that's interesting that it actually does do that. I never heard that before, but something to think about. But you definitely need B vitamins. So don't stop taking, if you're taking B vitamins or trying to eat more foods with B vitamins in them, don't stop because of this. It may just be that it's a certain amount of niacin that does raise your blood glucose. Allergies, yes. and lady, when you're on your menstrual cycle, your blood sugar or blood glucose has a tendency to be higher than when you're not on your menstrual cycle. As a matter of fact, I read an article recently, and we're going to talk about this in a future episode, that like those last 2 weeks, like the week before your period and the week of your period, your blood glucose is actually higher during that period of time than what it would be those first 2 weeks, like right after your period. So like, your whole cycle is roughly 28 days. The first 2 weeks of your cycle, which is the first day after the end of your period, so that from day 1 to day 14, your blood sugar is, should be normal. If, assume there's no other issues going on, it should be normal. But typically that week before, which is day 15 through day 28, the week before your period and the week of your period, your blood sugar is typically higher. And also, and plus not only that, but a lot of times, like for even myself, a lot of time when we're on our, women, when we're on our menstrual cycles, we actually crave sweets more and so forth. So not only that, just not only biologically, your blood glucose likely to be higher, plus you're more likely to eat foods that are going to, cause your sugar to spike even more. So just be mindful of that. And activity, we're going to go over activity. Light exercise reduces your blood sugar. High intensity exercise can, it does a little bit of both. It just really depends on the exercise. I do know that when you weight train, that does lower your blood sugar, whereas cardio can kick it up a little bit, because whenever you're doing like high intensity cardio, it also raises cortisol. And if you recall in previous live streams, I have said that whenever your cortisol is raised, whether it be through exercise or stress, mentioned above, either one of those, is your blood sugar is going to be raised as well. So always keep that in mind. Okay, time of day and food and insulin timing. Okay. And that's it. When we're talking about food and insulin timing or time of day, those are kind of go hand in hand. That has to do with your circadian rhythms or your biological clock. So during the daytime, your cortisol is, when you first wake up in the morning, your cortisol is at its peak because it takes cortisol to wake you up in the morning. So when your cortisol is at its peak, your blood sugar, it may be peaked to a certain extent as well, or, it should, hopefully within a normal range, but sometimes, depending on what's going on with your body, it may not be. But whenever your cortisol is up, your blood sugar is usually a little bit higher as well. And then, depending on whether or not, how soon you eat or do other things, it may go up or down depending. Environmental, expired insulin. That's like if you're diabetic and you're taking insulin, inaccurate blood glucose readings. That's like if your glucometer is off, because that does happen. That's happened with my glucometer before. Sometimes it's like, say, if you have to, because one thing when you're using a glucometer, you have to make sure you clean your finger with the alcohol wipe that they, usually have within the glucometer kit before you take a prick and, test your blood, because if you don't, it can cause an inaccurate reading. There's other things that can play into that too, but you can do your own research on that. And let's see here. Behavioral and decision-making, frequency of blood glucose checks, default options and choices, decision-making biases, family relationships, and social pressure. So those can either work for you or against you, depending on your support network that you have. And let's go into the next one, because I really want to talk about this, because I use this personally. It works well for me, is the glycemic index. Okay, and I'm sure some of you have heard of the GI diet and so forth, which I guess in a sense I practice that. I don't like to subscribe to a particular diet really per se, but it's something you want to keep in mind. There's low GI and there's high GI. You don't want to be, getting that high GI range though. You definitely want to stay on the lower end. GI just stands for glycemic index. Different foods have different glycemic indexes. The foods that have more sugar, that have more, will be categorized in simple carbs in most cases. Those are considered they may either fall into that medium or high category. And I really, as I'm eating throughout the day, especially through the week, unless it's a cheat day. Now, if it's a cheat day, I might do something different. But throughout the week, I would say, Monday through Thursday, definitely, I really try to stay on the low end of the spectrum when it comes to low, and just stick with low glycemic index foods. It's just something you really want to watch because I feel like I manage my blood sugar or blood glucose better and get better readings when I'm staying on that low, when I'm sticking with the low, I can't even talk, glycemic index foods. And these are foods here that are low glycemic foods. And I thought I had all food groups. I think meat is automatically either a low or medium glycemic index because, meat, of course, usually doesn't have a lot of, typically doesn't have a lot of sweets or, carbs in it unless they're, it's added on to something else that is a carb. But apples, apricots, avocados, berries, cherries, grapefruits. So you're pretty safe with the citrus fruits as far as low glycemic index foods. Peaches, pears, plums, pomegranates, tangerines, and tomatoes. And this is where I was wanting to talk about fruit because a lot of times when people are trying to eat healthy, especially if they have a sweet tooth, they want to eat fruit all the time, which fruit is great. However, when it comes to fruit, like I said, some fruits do have a high glycemic index, like pineapples, bananas, a lot of your mangoes, even though they're really good for you and they do have some, benefits, definitely, you really want to watch going overboard on those because the thing is those particular fruits they have high glycemic indexes and they will cause your blood sugar to spike if you, consume too much of it. And really and truly, if you're just really trying to lose weight, it's probably better just to stay away from it, period, unless unless you have it, except for that 1 or 2 cheat days, or if you have if your weekend is just a cheat weekend or whatever the case may be, go ahead and eat it then. But, as far as just through the week, I would really watch it with fruit. And if you're eating fruits throughout the week, just like I said, try your best to really stick with the low glycemic index fruits, because if you eat pineapples and bananas and what else there's some other ones that are high glycemic I can't think of, but with those, it will cause your blood sugar to spike. And okay, as far as legumes or beans, chickpeas are good. They don't raise blood sugar. Kidney beans, lentils, navy beans, soybeans, those don't really cause your blood sugar to really spike, so those are safer to eat. As far as vegetables, you see the grains already, but with vegetables, alfalfa sprouts, which I heard is really gross, but hey, whatever, keeps you healthy. Asparagus, bok choy, broccoli. I love broccoli, love cauliflower, cabbage, celery, cucumber. So most of the green vegetables don't. So basically, if you're eating a green vegetable, more than likely you're eating a low glycemic vegetable. Now, sweet potatoes, they're saying that those are also low glycemic, but what you don't want to eat is the white potatoes. Because white potatoes, they will raise your blood sugar. That's like you might as well be eating a sugar sandwich or something if you eat white potatoes. So just keep that in mind as well. By all means, do your own research about it. They're like the GI diet, which I've never read that book myself, but it's the foundation is, of the GI diet or the glycemic index diet is eating foods that are on that low glycemic index, or just being mindful of what you're eating and the, where it falls on that spectrum. And now, let's see. Okay. And now we are going to I told you we're going to cover a lot of area in this show, and I'm really trying to go through it. We're going to probably go through some of this other stuff in more detail in later episodes. But I just really wanted to speak on this tonight because I bought my glucometer back in, I want to say early March, or late February, early March, somewhere in there. And since then, I've been monitoring my blood glucose. It's definitely been an eye opener because for me, even though I was already eating pretty healthy, I still, found out there were areas where I still need to refine my eating habits more and watch the timing of how I was eating and how it would impact my blood sugar within a few hours or within the next day when I woke up in the morning. So, and the thing is, like I said, whenever you use a glucometer, you don't have to have a diabetes to use a glucometer, because I've never been diagnosed with diabetes, and I've been, had my blood sugar tested and all that stuff, but I've never been diagnosed. But being that I'm high risk because it runs in my family, I'm taking, I've decided to be proactive and, preventing it and taking corrective action to make sure that I'm okay. So, I eat a lot of raw vegetables. I juice vegetables. The low glycemic vegetables that were listed on the graphic I just showed you. I consume most of the stuff on that list. Like this morning I had, let's see, what did I have? This morning I had juice with, and I have a juicer that I actually make my own vegetable juice. It had spinach, it had kale, it had chard, all those, those green and purple vegetables. They have that in there that's really good for your body, and it helps regulate everything, especially your hormones, because insulin is actually a hormone. So whenever you hear someone talk about diabetes, that's a hormonal issue. And but yeah, just really, I really wanted to do this. This is one of the episodes I really just looked forward to doing, and I really wanted to just get the information out there, give you as much information as possible that I can pour into this, and but yeah, definitely if you see this again, like I said, take notes, watch it again and again and again, and take notes, because there's definitely information in this that you can use towards your own health and fitness to, just to improve your life overall. It's definitely, like I said, since I've been using a glucometer for the past couple of months now, it's definitely improved mine. I've actually lost more weight since I've been using a glucometer to track, where I'm at and everything. So I definitely encourage you to use that, and to also educate yourself more about low glycemic index and high glycemic index foods. So let me go into the next slide here and wrap this up. We are going to discuss some ways that you can actually either improve, if you're already diabetic, improve and reverse diabetes, or keep yourself, or if you're on that path via insulin resistance or pre-diabetes or whatever the case may be, how you can change the course and, just have some breakthrough and better manage your health. Okay. Okay. And here we're talking about intermittent fasting. Some of you may have heard of it before. It's kind of been picked up popularity here lately. Actually, intermittent fasting has been around for centuries, because a lot of cultures only practice. I know Muslims, they practice, well, not all of them, but some of them also practice eating once a day, or they eat within a certain time window and then don't eat anything for the rest of the day. And this is actually quite common, in, like I said, again, in other parts of the world. But it's just, I would say in the West, or the Western Hemisphere, whatever you want to call it, we've just recently kind of picked up on this within the past few years. It's gotten really popular. But it's just where you eat within a certain time window and you fast within a certain window. I do practice this as well, because for myself, like I said, most days of the week, which is Monday through Friday, Monday through Thursday, because sometimes I do it on Friday too. It just depends. But Monday through Thursday, I cut off eating after 7:30. A lot of times even 7. Sometimes I don't even eat dinner. It just depends on, if I had a heavier lunch where I ate like a big hearty salad, or if I just, because I'm not, a lot of times, the way I've trained my body at this point, I'm not just extremely hungry in the evenings like that anyways. Plus the way I eat healthy. So because I eat healthy, I'm not as hungry either. But yeah, it's just like where you eat within certain times a day. You have a certain time window when you eat, and a certain time window when you stop eating. Now for me, like I said, my cutoff is at 7:30. And when I cut off at 7:30, I won't have another meal until almost 10 o'clock the next day. So you're talking basically 15 hours of not eating, because you do include, because when you're fasting, you include the hours that you're sleeping too. So if you cut off eating at 7 or 7:30 and you don't eat again until 8 or 9, you're talking about already 12, anywhere between 12 to 15 hours of fasting. And that's just enough time for your body, as it says here, the benefits of intermittent fasting. It increases insulin and leptin sensitivity. So before, we were talking about insulin resistance, which is bad, and your body's no longer responsive to your insulin. Insulin sensitivity means that your body is more sensitive to insulin and so forth, which is reducing the risk of chronic disease, from diabetes to heart disease and even cancer. And leptin is the hunger. It's the satiety hormone. Whenever you're producing a normal amount of leptin, that's when your leptin hormone tells you when you're full. And as you see in the next fact here, it's talking about ghrelin levels, also known as the hunger hormone. Ghrelin is whenever you're hungry, that means your ghrelin is has increased, or it's higher, because your ghrelin is what tells you that you are hungry. Now, depending on how you eat and your lifestyle, some of us produce way too much ghrelin, which results in overeating, as it says here. But if you have a normal amount of ghrelin, your body, should tell you when it's time to eat and when it's time to stop eating. Not when you're miserably full or, full as a tick or whatever, but when it's time for you to stop eating and when you're actually satisfied. And whenever you're practicing intermittent fasting, it also decreases triglyceride levels and decreases your risk of heart disease, inflammation, and free radical damage. Let's see here. Okay. And it also, the ability to become fat adapted, which increases your energy by burning stored fat. So whenever you're doing intermittent fasting, especially if you work out first thing in the morning, which I wish I could do this, but I don't. Excuse me. Whenever you're fat adapted, your body burns fat more efficiently, because say if you eat first thing in the morning before you work out, your body can still burn fat, but it's not going to burn it's not going to go to your fat stores as quickly as it does as if you had fasted before you worked out. Basically, you burn more fat and lose more weight in a fasted state than you do in a non-fasted state, if that makes sense. And it decreases weight gain and metabolic disease risk, and also reduces insulin resistance. And this below just shows you some of the foods which you can eat when you're, practicing intermittent fasting. Some people, which I don't advise this, some people they practice intermittent fasting and eat whatever they want. But I would advise that. I would still say eat healthy as healthy and as mindfully as you can. But, if you're going to eat bad, I would say still, keep that within a certain time window as well, if you can. That will work out better for you than just eating bad all day. And there's different types of intermittent fasting. I'm not going to get into deep detail about it tonight, but I do want to discuss intermittent fasting in more detail in a future episode. But like I said, that I practice this as well. But like I said, my fasting window is basically from 7 to 7:30 p.m. till about 9:45, 10 o'clock the next morning. So again, you're talking about anywhere between 14 to 15 hours of fasting, because you do include the hours that you're sleeping as well in that fasting period. And then my window to eat is between 10 a.m. till 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. basically, which that's a large window. I mean, that does sound like a large window, but I'm fasting longer than I'm eating, if that makes sense. So the time window for fasting is much larger than my window for eating. Yeah. Okay, and we're also going to talk about some supplements that you can take. So say if you're not, and you can also take this if you already have diabetes. You can either take it as a replacement for your prescription medication, or you can also take it in conjunction with your prescription medication as well. But by all means, seek the advice from a medical professional, because I am not a medical professional. The information that I'm sharing is just informational. Take it for what it's worth, but we can't be held liable if you try some of this stuff and you for some reason get sick. I'm just saying that, but that's what the disclaimer is for. But some of the supplements that will help you manage your blood sugar. The first one, and I take both of these as well, just as just to help me out there. But this one here is called berberine. Berberine comes from China and India, where it was first used in traditional Chinese and Ayurvedic medicines. It's a natural alkaloid. An alkaloid is a class of organic compounds of plant origin. It's found in a wide variety of traditional herbs, including golden seal, berberry, gold thread, and tree turmeric. Okay, sorry about that little pause there. Okay, it's a 5,000-year-old system of naturally healing developed in India. It aims to eliminate the need for prescription drugs, complicated surgeries, or suffering through painful conditions. Its primary goal is to help people live long and balanced live long, healthy, and balanced lives. Okay. Okay, what health problems does berberine treat? Presently, it's being used actively to treat a wide range of serious health disorders, including heart disease and even cancer. It can also be used as an antibiotic. I have read that about berberine too, but it's also used to treat diabetes. And one thing I've read about berberine as well, and if I think about it, I'll provide the link later on in the description. But berberine can also, it's been studied and proven that berberine can also be used as a replacement for metformin, because a lot of people take metformin for blood sugar management. It's a prescription medication. Some people also take it for polycystic ovarian syndrome as well. But berberine has been studied to be almost, if not as effective as metformin. Excuse me. And it also has been used to treat bacterial gastroenteritis, diarrhea. I can't even say diarrhea, and other digestive diseases for more than 1,000 years. So that's pretty good. Excuse me, y'all. My allergies and stuff have been going crazy in my throat. That's why if I sound a little under the weather, it's because I'm just recovering from a cold. Okay, and another supplement here is chromium. And here we are going over chromium is a mineral within your body. And whenever usually what it has been studied that people that are diabetic usually are also deficient in chromium. So if you feel like you're having symptoms of insulin resistance or pre-diabetic and so forth, you may want to start taking chromium supplements. I would advise, and you can do more research on this, but if you have, if you suspect you have a chromium deficiency or just want to start taking it, purchase the GTF chromium. That's called, GTF stands for glucose tolerance factor chromium. Don't get just the regular chromium pill. I think it's called, I can't even pronounce it. Chromium picolinate. You don't want to take that one. That one has some side effects that you don't want to get off into or experience. But if you take GTF chromium, or I think it's called another name for GTF chromium is chromium nicotinate, I believe. That one's good for you. But just make sure that it says GTF chromium, because that's the one that's supposed to really help you with your glucose levels or your blood sugar. But symptoms of chromium deficiency include changes in appetite, poor blood sugar control, worsened levels of bone loss, weak bones, changes in weight, usually weight gain, low energy and fatigue, poor skin health, stunted growth and development, high cholesterol, low concentration and poor memory, delayed time in healing wounds, which that's another thing, because a lot of people that are also diabetic, it takes them longer to heal from a wound than people that aren't diabetic. Worsened eye health, that's another thing that greatly impacts people that are diabetic, which is vision. Mood changes, likely increases in anxiety. So if you're having those type of symptoms, you definitely need to consider chromium. And again, GTF chromium is the one that you want to, try to find. And because I remember not too long ago, I was, because I'm always, again, I geek out on this stuff. And there was actually a study done where it's, with obese people. And they had obese people in the study, and when they I guess tested, the chromium levels in their body, all of them were chromium deficiency. Well, chromium deficient. I don't know if they did a blood test to test their chromium, or if they were, because sometimes they can just hey, do you have this symptom, and this symptom, and determine if you're chromium deficient. So that's definitely something that you want to, consider. I believe chromium is actually in most vitamins as well, but like I said, I don't know when they put it in multivitamins, if they're using the chromium picolinate, which is the one that I would advise, or the GTF chromium. So you still may want to take a separate supplement for that. And tonight, like I said, again, I feel very passionately about this. And most of these issues, as you see in this word cloud, we have addressed. And as far as how, diabetes, high blood sugar, and how it affects your metabolism, and so forth. And I just hope that you really got something out of this tonight. But yeah, I'm glad that I I've been looking forward to addressing this topic for a while. I'm glad I finally did, because again, it's one of those that people just, I think that unless you are already diabetic and be diagnosed, you just don't think about your blood sugar and what you're eating. You just eat and don't think about it. You're just, drinking your Coke and eating your honey bun or your bagel or whatever the case may be, going to Starbucks, getting those mocha lattes or whatever, and you're not thinking about how that stuff impacts your blood sugar. I'm not saying that don't ever eat it. I'm just saying really be mindful of it and don't eat it all the time. Don't even eat it daily. Just, save it for your cheat day. That's what I do. If it's something I really want to eat, save it for my cheat day. I'm not going to eat it Monday through Thursday at least. If I'm eat it, I'm going to more than likely eat it on the, just eat it on the weekend, but don't, and still don't go crazy, but, just be mindful of your eating and how you eat. That's one thing that I really want to stress, just not only in this episode, but just with this live stream period. Be mindful of how you eat, how you move, how you sleep, how you manage stress, all this stuff. Be mindful and pay attention to your body. Listen to your body and what it's telling you. And just, health is wealth. You only get, one chance at this. So just, you got to take care of it, the best way you can. Sorry, I've been my allergies have been driving me nuts this past week or so, and my throat is like, but I'm getting better. I feel better. It's just my throat is still, excuse me, still bothering me. But I am going to go ahead and get off of here now before I cough even more on camera. But thanks for tuning in on the live stream. If you didn't catch the live stream, by all means, please check out the playback and take notes, all that great stuff. There's a lot of information packed in this. We're going to delve off into this topic of diabetes and blood sugar and so forth even more in depth in future episodes. But by all means, follow me on social media. I will post my social media at the end of this. And have a good night. We will see you all next week. I'm not sure what the topic's going to be next week just yet, but I'll figure it out. But yeah, I'm not sure what I'm going to discuss next week yet. But by all means, y'all, have a great night and just be mindful. And just remember that you have to heal to get healthy. Peace.